I'm quite aware that this group has splintered off from another group in Forsyth. Familiar with some of the people in that group as well. And my take is that's a good thing. It doesn't matter why it happened. I am of the opinion that the number of people who got off the couch and got involved last year in the elections, just like many of you did, is going to pale in comparison to the number who are going to get up off their couch in the next 18 months. Amen. We got to have a peg ready for them to hang their hat on when they show up. We got to have a job ready for them to do, because if they stand around and get bored, they're liable to turn around and go home. So I want to help talk to you for a few minutes about ways which I think you might be able to help yourself do that. You probably got more than one American Legion post in Forsyth County. You've got multiple Boy Scout troops. They all exist. They all do the same thing, but they don't go to war with each other. And I would hope that in time this group would grow large enough, and there is such a thing as a maximum level of return where a group can actually outgrow its own effectiveness. Is there a magic number? No. But when this group grows larger, and I'm sure it will, you may well reach a point where you decide it's better to split into two groups. I'm the commander of my American Legion post in Wake Forest. We meet the second Thursday of every month. We have about 30% of our members who do not attend our meetings simply because they have other obligations on that one night a month. We try to please the most people. I'm right now encouraging those other 30% to form a new post that can meet on a different night so that we still have more people doing what we do. The solution to a problem doesn't have to be defined by the problem, and it certainly doesn't have to become the problem. And all too often in a group like this, that's what happens. When you look at a solution, just like my coming here tonight, I'm grateful that you are, but why should you listen to me? Who am I? I'm a political nobody. Prior to August of last year, I'd never been involved in politics. Well, for whatever reason, I hope it's the same reason and the same friendliness and welcome that you will offer to the next person who walks through that door to join your group. Because people, you never know what skills and what talents and what connections that person is bringing to your table. They're here because they came and voluntarily wanted to be a part of it. Don't judge them and cut them off at the knees until you've sat down and at least broken bread with them and had the conversation. I keep using that phrase on Facebook all the time. Have the conversation. Amen. But I had gained a lot of contacts with good people like you, and back in the spring I decided I wanted to put together a group and bring some people together to talk about how we can get these groups talking to each other. I called it the M.A.D project, Making a Difference, and quite frankly, and I was candid with everybody, I don't have a plan. I'm trying to put the right talent around the table to come up with a plan. And we had 30 people from 15 counties that met in mid-July in Wake Forest. I hosted a luncheon for them and brought them in, and folks, that meeting lasted 3 hours without devolving into a free-for-all. This is how committed these people are to making this work. Just like our founding fathers set aside their personal differences and focused what we had in common. And that's what I encourage you to do. We're going to have more differences between us just in this room alone on issues and which way we should go on issues. But those core Tea Party values, limited government, personal responsibility, smaller government, are the types of things that we all agree on. And that's where I suggest you keep your focus. There will be those who will try to pull you astray. Well, you can't reduce the debt unless you solve the legal immigration problem because they're just driving our social services budgets crazy. Okay, fine, we get that. But that's not the debate we need to be having to move this organization and what you're trying to achieve forward. So let me focus on that just for a minute. What are you trying to achieve? They read the mission statement. You're going to educate the public. You're going to be active in your local political units, your city councils, your county commissioners, and whatnot. Be organized in what you do. There are 3 things that each organization has to consider. And they are, well, this pen is not exactly the best. Oops. Does anybody know? Thank you. And the three things that any organization, I don't care whether you're selling automobiles, manufacturing plastic drinking straws, these are the three inescapable things that you have to think about in planning your organization. And this organization has to have a plan if it's going to be successful. It doesn't have to be complex, but ways, means, and ends. This is the ends. This is your mission statement. This is what you want to achieve. Whether it's identifying a certain candidate, getting them on the ballot, getting the voters in the precincts to the polls to cast the votes to put that man into office, all of these are steps along that line. How do you do that? There are different ways to do it. You can do it through public announcements and education. You can do it from personal one-on-one contacts. And then the means are the resources, the money, the people who donate their time, people who donate the materials, people who will go buy a ream of paper to have it, to have a flyer or something printed. Don't limit yourself. Look for solutions. My business motto is ideal in solutions, not problems, because when you focus on the problem, that's a negative mindset. Focus on the solution. We have, by my count, at least 33 people in this room tonight. Many of you who probably don't know each other may have never even met before. 43. 40. Okay, 40. It's already growing. We're not even doing the first meeting. This is strategic planning. Tactical planning is how do you put on a rally? How do you put on a hot dog or a bake sale or something like that? But strategy is what ties all that into meeting the goals at the end. You should be able to tell yourself that if we put on this rally, we're going to raise X amount of dollars. Or we're going to make contact with X number of new people. Have a specific goal in mind for what you do. Why? One, because it makes other people think you know what you're doing. Because it's a smart way to plan it. Do you just go out and say, okay, everybody come to the park on Sunday at 2 o'clock and bring a covered dish and we'll see how many people show up? That's never going to take you anywhere. That's never going to take you anywhere. So I'm encouraging you to think about this much like you would a business and look at it for profit and decide what your profit is and how you're going to define that. I got to tell you a joke I heard today. It's about a Taliban. He was wandering through the desert in Afghanistan and he was dying of thirst. And he came across an old Jewish guy sitting at a table in the desert selling neckties. And he says, necktie is $5. And the guy says, I need water. He says, I don't have water, but I'll sell you a necktie for $5. And the Taliban says, why would I buy a necktie? Well, I should just kill you. And he says, well, look, even though you hate me, he says, I'll tell you what, I'm going to help you. Go over that hill about 2 miles, and there's a restaurant over there, and it's got all the cold water that you could want. And so the guy trundles off, and he goes over the hill to the restaurant. And 2 hours later, he comes back. And he walks up to the old fellow. He staggers up. And the guy says, did you get your water? He says, no, your brother wouldn't let me in without a towel. What's the relevance of that? The old Jewish guy sitting there selling the tie had part of the solution. The other person didn't know that it was part of the solution. He found out the hard way. That's why I encourage you to be open-minded, because people, anybody in this neighborhood, from anywhere in Forsyth County, can see one of your posters and walk through that door. Please do your best to make them welcome, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take not just what you do here in Forsyth County. It's going to take what these groups are doing in all 100 counties around the state. What we set up was basically a Chamber of Commerce type. Anybody here own their own business? Okay. Do you belong to Chamber of Commerce?
No.
No. Nobody belongs to Chamber of Commerce. Okay.
I have in the past.
You have in the past. Did they tell you how to run your business?
No.
No, of course not. But what they do is they offer businesses of like type to coordinate, communicate, and cooperate with each other when it suits their purposes. Nobody forces them to do anything. It's an additional resource that you can draw on. And you are a new group, and there are groups well established in the state. There are other new groups like you. And folks, you can all learn from each other just by having the conversation. All I tried to do was to create the link, to get them to the phone, get them to the table to talk. What I did this month was take it one step further. I actually just got on the phone, got on the email. I invited Scott, Dan Forrest, Tony Gurley, both are running for Lieutenant Governor, Mike Beitler, who's running for Secretary of State, Bill Randall, Vernon Robinson, Dan Eichenbaum, Scott Keatle, Mike Owens, Ilario Pantano from the 7th District, and invited them all to lunch in Burlington. Let's get together now, let's talk to the conservative candidates. These are the people that want me to believe they're leaders in the community, that hold conservative values. And by God, they're all going to be asking us to work our butts off next year to get them into office. The question then is going to be, what have you done for me lately? Kind of hard to sell a guy as a leader in the community if he's not, in fact, a leader in the community. So we met for the lunch. And it was a very good discussion. I appreciate everything that they brought to the table. I floated the idea of having a rally down near Raleigh in late September and have them bring in their candidate, their local candidate, that they were supporting for city council, mayor, school board, whatever. If you're a leader in the community, I would assume you'd be out there supporting these local conservatives that we all want to get elected this fall. I know you've got your picks here in Forsyth County, running for certain offices. So who's running for Congress in this district? Is a conservative? Is it unreasonable to expect them to be out there showing support in some way? And one of the gentlemen, I won't name him because it's not really important, actually said, well, these local candidates, they're not going to give up a day out of their campaign and come to some rally in Raleigh that's not going to benefit them. Even though it would have certainly painted a broader face for the whole conservative movement, you know, the legal immigration, Second Amendment, pro-life, all the different groups, you know, everything that kind of brings people together. I said that they're not just going to do it because there's nothing in it for them. And I responded basically that, you know, we have a legislature in North Carolina and a Congress in Washington full of politicians already who don't do a darn thing unless it's in their personal interest to do so. And I can tell you that I know I stepped on some toes, but I think I rang some bells too, because the next 2 days my phone and emails were filled with their people getting back to me one-on-one saying, you know, I went home, I slept on it, I thought about it, and you're right. I don't know what they're going to do with it. But I'm hoping that when you see them out there on the campaign trail right now, that they're working just as hard for these local candidates as they are going to be for themselves next year. Because if they want us to invest in them next year, I would think they should invest in us this year. Use this attitude, if you will, in your interactions with your local candidates. Because I think it will buy you a lot of traction. I know that part of the frustration that we all feel, those of us that are Republicans certainly, is that the party no longer represents us. Like Ronald Reagan said, he didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left him. Well, I'm sure many of us kind of share that same attitude. So when these candidates that you want to get put into office, that gets tied in here to your ends. That's another one of your goals, another one of your mission statements. And do put it down in writing. Make it something that you can refer back to periodically keep yourself on track, if you will. And secondly, develop for yourself a way of measuring success along the way. If you are holding a rally in October, and it is now mid-August, then have a goal that by September 10th you want to have sold X number of tickets, and by September 30th you want to have sold twice that many. Make your goals realistic, but give yourself a yardstick so that you know that you're making progress. One, because that very fact helps you sell that event. It helps sell the organization, that you know what you're doing. It's part of your branding. Just like Coke and Pepsi and everybody else, they sell the brand. Once you sell the brand, they don't have to sell the product. Or at least not nearly as hard.